Lost Soul aside, game that had a lot of people in a chokehold for nearly a decade. Why? Because it looked cool and had people questioning if this was even a real game. Yo, what up, it's Russ, and welcome back to the channel where I'm just a regular guy that shares his experiences with what he's been playing. If that feels like something you can relate to, go ahead and feel free to stick around, hit that subscribe button, and join the conversation. As today, we take a look at what some may consider to be another one of the mediocre releases of 2025. Now, the consensus that I've gathered from voices all across the internet is that this game, at its very best, is disappointing. But after 10 years of swelling expectations, it's kind of hard to live up to anything. At the same time, though, looking through all of these old trailers and whatnot, it did seem to be quite a promising project and gave many people great reasons to be excited. I mean, just look at this stuff. The environments and sense of exploration that was on display here, the main character being swagged out, despite obvious influence. But most of all, the action looks sick as almost like if Final Fantasy 15 played like Devil May Cry or Bayonetta, which, considering how much Final Fantasy 15 influenced this game's overall creation in the first place, it makes sense. And honestly, who doesn't think that would have been cool? However, as mentioned before, and much the same as its Final Fantasy influence, the long wait kind of led to doubt. The trailers led to high expectation, and the delay led to some skepticism. However, with the game being out now, did it honestly fail that hard at being an enjoyable experience? I tend to lean towards no. Now, the game does still have its shortcomings, but there's definitely a decent game in there, and dare I say, a fun one at that. So let's take a look at why. If you stick around for this whole video, you'll notice that cool is going to be a common thread throughout this whole thing, as it is with this game. Now, I could be wrong, but I feel like cool is the overall design philosophy that went into this game. What looks cool? What feels cool? What sounds cool? It seems like all of that led to the design decisions around this game, at least initially. We'll speak more about that later. But to start, I'm going to switch things up and begin by talking about the gameplay, because that is clearly what got the most attention by far and is honestly what the game is trying to sell itself on. So, first things first, the combat. The combat in this game is honestly a blast. It's flashy, it's fast, it feels good, and it's just simply fun to pull off cool combos. There's light attacks, heavy attacks, ranged attacks, charge attacks, perfect dodging, blocking, special abilities, weapon switching, and item management. So pretty much anything that's at the core of popular action games is present here. There's even a straight up devil trigger.
Give me strength!
Hold on, what's the actual name of this thing again? Fusion Merge, there we go, all right. So yeah, you have a lot of tools at your disposal, and you are made to feel like a complete badass in every encounter you come across. And the game succeeds in doing that, mainly off of the freedom of choice the game gives you. For instance, you can pull off a string of hits to knock an enemy up into the air, juggle them while they're up there, knock them back down, and then follow them back to the ground. Or don't do that and just shoot them from the air while they're on the ground. You have options. Then you can be hitting multiple perfect dodges in a row and still hit that perfect block in the middle of all the chaos, and it just feels absolutely satisfying. But then too, you don't have to risk it. You can still dodge despite the giant hey block visual telegraph on the screen, and vice versa. However, one thing that is different here as opposed to other action games is the stamina meter that's present. So instead of zipping all over the battlefield like you would in other character action games, here you do have a limit to what you can do, as all of your dodging, blocking, and even combo extensions once you get access to them are tied to this meter. But if you aren't careful, you could find yourself in a position where you have no stamina left to defend with when it's critical. Now, when it comes to enemy types, they are pretty varied and will keep you on your toes as more and more are introduced. And even some fights are gimmicked to where it's not necessarily just about beating ass. Sometimes you got to take out a mechanism or activate one, or just beat ass in the right order. I will say though, despite how good combat is in general, it does start to feel a bit stagnant at points, in large part due to the fact that you just do it so much. Like, dog. And the game doesn't really push you to like use certain abilities or certain techniques over others, which, like mentioned before, does play into that freedom of choice that you have. But on the other side of that, it's possible to get into a repetitive rhythm, and the fun can kind of begin to wane as you're fighting a lot of the fodder enemies or even the multiple mini bosses that you come across. But that does bring me to the big bosses. Oh my fucking god. Holy shit. Okay. All right, cool. That's fine. That's wonderful. The bosses, I think, are a highlight and do a good job of changing how you interact with the combat in the game. And discounting mini bosses and such, I can really only recall one boss that was repeated, if I'm remembering correctly. All the rest of them were fairly unique, other than the fact that most of them are like human fights. But the way they made you fight them was different from boss to boss, and it was fun to try and figure that out.
Get the f over here!
Okay, ow, what the fuck? And to that point, they fully made me immerse myself with the combat system to try and take them down. This is also further enforced by the fact that you can easily retry a boss when you die. There's not really any punishment for dying. You kind of just respawn right outside of the boss arena with Liana, I think her name is. I forget. The little chick that basically serves as all the bonfires for these levels. She just pops up everywhere and lets you, heals you, lets you buy stuff, a whole bunch of other stuff too. She's everywhere. She is so abundant that dying never makes you feel like a loss of progression, like ever. You also have the capability to switch abilities and equipment mid-fight to try and gain the upper hand. And yes, you heard me right. There's equipment and ability management along with a few other light RPG elements, which I was not expecting in the slightest, if I'm being completely honest. You do have a few different ways to build this character to your liking. There's equipable trinkets that give bonuses to things like health, stamina, attack power, you know, the standard stuff. There's also multiple weapons of the 4 types that you're given, and typically each of them has some type of elemental affinity attached to it. And then that goes even a bit further with the option to customize these weapons with actual visible accessories that attach and give different boosts to different things. This idea is one that I quite like in theory. Just you being able to make a weapon uniquely yours by plastering accessories all over it. The only thing is, I just think the way the system works here could be implemented a bit better, as it's difficult to make anything look good. All the items like constantly clip through the weapon, no matter where you place them. And on top of that, the items they give you kind of look like trash. I mean, it's subjective, but me personally, there's like a couple that I found pretty cool to attach. And then they were just figuring out, okay, where would this look cool attaching it to? But on the plus side, you can plaster your weapon with accessories and then hide them all and still get the benefits from it. That's a nice touch. Up next is Arena Power, which are the special abilities that you can trigger during combat. And there's quite a list to choose from. Now, they do more or less the same thing, you know, damaging the enemy just in a variety of different ways. Although, there is one that doesn't do that.
Trees, calling on the exhalation, spreads the word, a constellation about trees.
Trees are terrific!
Eventually, you can have up to 3 of these equipped at once, and they can be swapped in and out at your discretion. And they also level up, given you have the required item to do so. And lastly, there's a skill tree, or rather skill trees, each designated to a certain weapon type. If you've seen a skill tree before, you probably know what's going on here. You can spend skill points acquired through combat and exploration to expand your moveset, gain stat increases. And while the trees themselves are not complicated by any means, they do give you something to think about as you're spending points. Like, okay, do I go for the stat increase? Do I go for the additional hit in the combo? Do I change how this move works in general? Or do I think about all that in a different skill tree? There are no wrong decisions here. It's just about what you feel like is the right decision for you and what's going to help you and what you feel like you can pull off. Now, while combat is a strong and probably core pillar of this experience, everything else surrounding it is where things start to fall apart. This is where you can start to see where the ambition of the game met time constraints, publisher influence, and just an overall lack of experience. Starting with the overall level design, it's quite clear that initially this was supposed to be a more open world, or at least open zoned experience. You can see that from the early demos that were shown off, and even some of it still remains here, with some of the zones looking as though they can go further than they actually do. And you also can't tell me that this little overworld animation they got going on here didn't play into some larger zone selection screen or something, because why is this even here? But yeah, each zone you visit kind of gives a false sense of vastness. Like in early levels specifically has you running around this open field tackling challenges to move forward, where it then proceeds to revert back to its linear foundation that you got accustomed to. Now that's not inherently a bad thing. What's bad is just how long these levels can last, how empty they are, aside from all the enemies trying to kill you, and just the repetitive loop of progression that you go through. So levels basically come in two flavors. You have the real world, as I like to call it, and then the alternate dimensions. Typically, you'll run through the real world for God knows how long until you find the alternate dimension, and then you go through that for God knows how long until you find the crystal fragment or whatever it's called at the end of it. That's basically how each of these levels, areas, chapters goes, besides like maybe the very first one and the very last one. And that gets tiring. And the criticisms I have with the levels is spread across all of them, essentially. For one, they feel like giant collectathons. Their chests littered all over the place, and they hardly contain anything worth your time besides stuff that you can use for crafting. Oh yeah, there's crafting too. I didn't find any point in doing it ever, but it's there. Then we have the god-awful platforming. What the Taser? What are we doing? What the Oh my god. Can I please, for the love of God? Dude. And then I missed the damn Oh my god, I hate this. Let's just get this clear. If you're gonna put platforming in your game, then you need to make quintuply sure that your controls are able to support said platforming. The controls here aren't at all. It doesn't feel good. It's just frustrating as hell, and there's way too much of it. And then to make things worse, don't put the cool shit in the cutscenes, dude. Like, let me play it. Like this animation right here that we've seen in pretty much every single trailer. It's a canned one, and it's repeated quite a lot. You don't ever control this. And then, ow. That hurt. Oh my. Then the next thing you know, dude is playing Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, but we're stuck playing Sonic Free Riders. And honestly, That's probably giving it too much credit. Really makes me wonder what the point of keeping these surfing sections was, as you have little to no control over what happens here, besides a little left to right and a jump attack that doesn't seem to do anything whatsoever. Now, it's not all bad. There are some pretty neat puzzles sprinkled throughout that had me thinking for a bit, even though beating the shit out of everything solves a majority of your problems. There are also these dispersed dimensions that you can find, which are essentially just challenge gates that give you a list of objectives to beat. And these I found to be quite challenging as opposed to the main game itself, especially if you're going for all the rewards they give you. Now, the alternate dimensions tend to fare a bit better overall in design due to the fact that each one has its own gimmick associated with it that you have to be mindful of when navigating the space. So with that, it keeps you from just running around from fight to fight, although that still is ultimately what happens and what it feels like these levels were mostly designed around anyway. It's like we have several fights here. How do we get you from one to the next? Or how do we make it interesting? Let's have an enemy show up when they touch a button. What was the point of coming all the way around here just to push a button?
What a warm welcome.
Oh, a fight. Yeah, of course. Like, dude, I've been fighting in this level for like 3 hours, all to get to this damn gate. Just let me go. This isn't even a boss fight. Why are we doing this? Why do I have to have one more roadblock to get to the destination? I've already had at least 150. One on the way here. Or another theory is because of how much had to be cut from this game to fill out the empty parts they had left over, they just decided to stuff them with combat encounters. Like 20 hours worth. And that's not because of difficulty. If anything, this game is on the easier side of the spectrum. I had no real difficulty in getting through this game whatsoever. No, that 20 hours is basically just how long it takes to get through all the areas combined. And I don't know about you, but 20 hours is a bit too long for a game like this, in my opinion. This game and games like it typically don't have enough variety to sustain them for that long, because at like 10 to 15 hours is when they start overstaying their welcome. At least when we're talking about the main story. And the same goes for this game. But I also got a feeling that the $60 price tag attached to this thing probably played into the bloat that this game has. But it didn't need it, especially since there's post-game content that's still available. There's a boss rush mode that's unlocked, and you can replay every stage at a higher difficulty. And don't forget all the challenge gates that you still may need to first find and then complete. There was already a decent amount there to keep you occupied if you really wanted more, I think. So yeah, I feel like if this game was just cut in half in terms of playtime, it would have been just the right length and would have been an even more enjoyable experience with all the good that actually is there. When it comes to the visuals of this game, I do want to give some credit. Again, glazing the combat here. All the effects and particles that shoot off during the fights are extremely well done and really adds to the magical spectacle that they try to portray. The choreography in a lot of the scenes is kind of absurd, but in a good way, like they were pulled straight out of like a battle anime or something. And even outside of the combat realm, the game doesn't look terrible. Does it look the greatest? No. If anything, things kind of just look flat. But I think the art direction on display can be quite phenomenal in some of the locales you visit, like this royal court, for instance, or wherever the hell this is, or this library, where if libraries look like this in real life, I might actually enjoy reading. Each location has its own distinct look and identity, despite having similar design language, especially when it comes to the alternate dimensions. All the polygonal architecture of these environments, if left to their own, can start to blend together, but the design themes that they're built around like lava or water, for instance, I feel are incorporated very well aesthetically and keeps each one fresh visually as you progress through the game. I mean, does this not look cool? Yes. Yes, it does. I also think the characters themselves have pretty awesome designs. You know, for going the whole Final Fantasy 15 influence and the fact that they lack any substantial impact in the narrative or the game in general, they do at least have a presence when they're on screen instead of looking like generic side character 11. However, things aren't completely sweet. This game does have its fair share of graphical and performance hiccups that I encountered. Up front, I played this on a base PS5 on performance mode. I gave quality mode a try. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that wasn't happening. For an action game like this, I need my frames, bruh. At least for as long as the game allows me to have them. Oh my holy frame drops. I need those. There's also quite a bit of texture pop in or textures that are just unfinished altogether. Consent is clearly an optional concept when it comes to Mr. Arena over here. Call 911! Characters just pop in and out of existence in the most lackluster way possible. Like, okay. And of course, all these things, however, don't necessarily kill the experience. At a minimum, they're just nitpicks, and at worst, they're just inconveniences. And hell, most of the time, you're gonna be too busy getting jumped anyway to even notice. Good job on that. All right, I've held off talking about the story of this game for really one simple reason. It's not that good. But to give a quick synopsis of what's here, you are Kaiser, an elite fighter of this resistance group called Glimmer. Because they're the only glimmer of hope, I guess. In an attempt to inspire revolution in the hearts of the people, their mission kind of goes sideways with the sudden arrival of the Voidrex, pretty cool name, who begin to devastate the area. Kaiser then comes into contact with the Voidrex Lord Arena. Yes, that is his name.
You may call me Lord Arena.
And you will remember it.
How do you feel about Lord Arena's power? How do you feel about Lord Arena's power, huh?
Who cares?
Arena then offers to merge with Kaiser in order to grant him tremendous power and allows both of them to escape and fight back against the invasion. However, in the process of doing so, Kaiser's sister has her soul taken away.
Get over here!
You see, this is exactly why you can't trust the government. And so begins a journey to figure out just what the hell is going on and to save his sister. What's presented here honestly feels like it was something thrown together just to give you a reason to go from one combat encounter to the next and hopefully make you feel something of substance during each fight, I guess, aside from some slight frustration.
Pathetic. How can you be both gullible and useless?
Unfortunately, the story failed to make me feel anything about anyone at any point in time throughout its entire run. Characters did not manage to leave any impactful impression, as a lot of them just aren't given much to do throughout the game, and you don't spend that much time with them to really know them, aside from, you know, the ones trying to kill you.
Pathetic.
Oh my
How can you be
god!
both gullible and useless?
What the fuck? They're kind of just there to lore dump on you to further realize the world, or just tell you what to do, most of which is just completely uninteresting dialogue that I'm just dying to get through. And they can talk a lot, which makes it all the more frustrating when the damn auto-scrolling feature doesn't stay on. Arena is probably the best character in the game, despite him yelling in your ear all the damn time.
Show you what I'm made of. Time to flex my muscles.
He was the only one I really cared to pay attention to when he was speaking, because one, he generally knew more about what was going on than anybody else, and two, there was the off chance that he would just instigate some shit.
Why are you fluttering around like a baby bird? Such a scared chick.
She's not wrong about that.
you. I would also say this plot is very, very predictable, and not in a I know what's going to happen, but it's still cool kind of way, but in a here we go again kind of way, because they kind of already tell you how the story is going to progress from the jump, and there are really no surprises or swerves to really draw you in further. If you were drawn in the first place, you can really easily see everything coming. But if you look into this game's development, the story is one of many things that ended up getting cut down and rewritten due to publisher pushback. I'm not saying what was chopped would have at all helped or added context or was even good, but on the other hand, maybe it could have. But what we're ultimately left here with is just something that's basic, which is fine, but it's not gonna stick out in my memory anytime soon. The music, lastly, is a more positive part of this game. I liked it from the moment I first turned the game on. So that was already a good sign. The score, while I'd say is mostly orchestrated, it does pull from other genres. Like, it's not afraid to pull you out of the concert hall and then throw you into the desert for a raid. But then in another instance, the soundtrack will give off a lighthearted sense of adventure. And even the fusion of different sounds just plays up a sense of grandiosity. Now, while I was playing, I can't say any particular track stuck out to me, but at the same time, they're not really supposed to. I feel like the music fits the action or lack of and just melded seamlessly with what I was experiencing on screen. I even caught myself bobbing my head a couple times. The musical composition of this game, I think, is very well done. Only second to the combat. However, in the same breath, I think some of the audio design for the combat sounds a little flat. The hits mainly just sound weak.
Let's do this together.
The heavy sword is one weapon that fares a bit better, but even so, maybe they could have used a bit more oomph just to make you feel like you're doing something more than just slapping the enemy every way from Sunday. It's not bad by any means. I just think there's some room for improvement in that area.
Strong enough.
So, the ultimate question. Is Lost Soul Aside worth your money and, more importantly, your time? Or vice versa, depending on how much you place value on those things? Well, there's a bit of a nuanced answer to that. If we're talking as it is now at the time of recording, I think I have to say no. Main reason being the price. This game, full price, is $60. And while that's not standard full price nowadays, it's still a hefty ask for what you're getting, especially if you look at games that have come out of the gate cheaper than this and greatly surpass its level of quality. Why would you choose this over one of those? Aside from how long this game is and the extra challenge mode, This feels like a $30 product. I could maybe see 40. But that's pushing it. The lackluster story, the slow pacing, and the overall okay visual presentation just drag the whole package down as a whole. And the combat alone just doesn't justify the high price tag in my opinion. However, if you manage to come across this game at said 30 or 20 bucks even, I think it's worth checking out at least. Again, you just kind of have to tone down your expectations, know what you're getting into, and just take the game for what it is. And that's a really fun budget character action game. If you're into the likes of DMC, Bayonetta, Nier Automata, Platinum games in general, then this, although lesser, will be right up your alley. And I think you'll be able to find the fun in it, as I did. And we also have to realize that although it was 10 years from like the initial drop of the concept for this thing, the game we're playing was only in development for like 5 years. And it was worked on by an extremely small team that had to deal with publisher interference, a complete restart of development, COVID, and just the lack of game development experience altogether, let alone action game dev experience. And then furthermore, this started as a demo for a job application, dude. Like, this was never supposed to be a real game. Homie was just trying to make his resume look good. So the fact that a lot of the early ideas and foundations that Yang Bing, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly, created actually came to fruition is nothing short of a miracle and quite an endearing story of perseverance that I highly recommend you look into. And I hope that this serves as a stepping stone and that this guy or this team get to work on another project that has realistic expectations, a clear vision, and proper planning. Because they figured out how to make a fun game. It's just everything else around that they need to figure out. That's if he even wants to, because this thing, this almost took my boy out. Like, but those are my thoughts and experiences with Lost Soul aside. Are you going to pick up the game? Have you played it? If so, what were your thoughts on it? Were you one of the ones that were massively disappointed? Or were you able to find some good redeeming things about it? I'd like to know. Let me know in the comments down below. And as always, if you like content like this and want to see more, feel free to subscribe, like, and share the video. And yeah, that's going to do it for me. I'm Russ, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Later.